This is why you should always trust your gut. Sabrina was about to head to college, but she had one big insecurity, her glasses, so she felt really excited when she finally scheduled her LASIK surgery. During her initial consultation with her doctor, though, she noticed some strange behaviors. He'd always scratch the top of his hairline, sometimes every few minutes. She also caught him trying to write with the cap of his pen still on and looking confused about why no ink was coming out. But she just brushed it off. She was excited to never wear glasses again, so she decided to go ahead with it. During surgery, she felt a dash of darkness. She felt something pull on her eye. It wasn't painful due to the numbing drops that she'd used, but she could still feel it. She thought this must be normal. Until a few weeks later, she woke up and her eyes were bloodshot. She went into her bathroom and saw that she had a huge lump under her eye. She tried to blink, but she couldn't close her eyes all the way. And as Sabrina leaned closer to the mirror to try and touch it, she saw in her own reflection something alive was moving inside. This is why things are never as they seem. Once there was a man who didn't want to get married because he didn't want to spend money on anyone else. He thought that if he got married, he would have to pay for his wife's food, clothes, and other items, which he didn't want to do. However, one day he came across a beautiful young woman who oddly never ate a single thing. He thought this was perfect. He wouldn't have to pay for her food and she could be his wife. He quickly asked her to marry him. But of course, things are not as they seem. He noticed that his supply of food was disappearing even though he never saw his wife eat. So one day he decided to spy on her. And what he saw was terrifying. He saw his wife's hair part in the back, revealing a huge mouth on the back of her head. Her skull split open and the mouth was unnaturally wide with huge teeth. Then he watched as his wife's hair twisted into a long strand, grasped handfuls of food and shoved it into the mouth on the back of her head. When she noticed her husband, she attacked him. He managed to get away and hide in the mountains. Weeks later, when he got the courage to return, he found his wife gone and all of his food taken. The man never married again.
This is why you should always check your back seat. A woman coming home from work decided to drive home. As she's driving, she notices a black car following behind her. And every red light she stops at, this black car will constantly flicker his lights. She began to panic and drove faster and faster, taking every turn she could to get away from this car. As she's driving, she calls her dad and tells her that this car is following her and to meet her in the driveway so she's not alone. She pulled into the driveway and sees her dad waiting outside. Then she sees the car that's been following her pull in right behind her. The man in the black car behind her gets out of his vehicle and runs to her and says, "Get out of your car now." She gets out and the man behind her says, "There is somebody trying to kill you." The man in the black car behind her pulls out a weapon. He shows the woman that there has been a man in her back seat, and every time he would flash his lights, it was because the man was about to stab her.
Do you know someone who idolizes a famous person a little bit too much? For Sophie, her obsession with her favorite celebrity led to something truly terrifying. Sophie loved everything about her favorite celebrity, who for now we'll just call Mindy. She especially loved Mindy's looks. She would buy the same clothes, get the same hairstyle, and buy the same jewelry. She did everything to look exactly like her. So one day, Sophie saw from Mindy's Instagram that she was about to go to this restaurant. So Sophie showed up at that restaurant first and waited until Mindy came. She had wanted to get plastic surgery for a while, and she thought, what better than to get a real-life reference photo for my doctor. Soon, Mindy came in, sat down, and ordered. Sophie tried to compose herself, but when Sophie saw that Mindy got up to go to the bathroom, she followed. Then she pretended to be someone that Mindy met at an event and probably forgot about, so she wouldn't seem like just another fan. Then she leaned in and asked to take a photo together. The next day, she walked into her doctor's office with the reference in hand and said, "Here's exactly what I want to look like," and demanded the face be sewn into hers.
This is why you should never play hide and seek. A mom decided to play hide and seek with her 2 kids. The mom began counting, ready or not, here I come. She begins searching the downstairs kitchen because she knows that they hide there every single time. As she's walking to the kitchen, she starts saying, I wonder where they are. She looks under the table and sees they aren't there, which is kind of odd. She knew they were too scared to go into the basement alone, but she decided to check anyway. They weren't there either. She began to panic. The mom then says, "Jordan, Casey, come out now. Mommy's not playing anymore." There was no answer. Panic really begins to set in. She decides to call 911 and reaches an operator. She tells the operator what's wrong and the operator sends an officer to her house. Once the officer arrives, he says, "Don't worry, we will find them." As she's sitting in the living room, she hears giggling and laughing and hears a closet door slam upstairs. She sprints upstairs and says, "Jordan, Casey, you worried me sick." She opened the closet door and nobody was there. While all of this is going on, she hears the doorbell ring. She runs downstairs and finds the officer holding Jordan and Casey. The officer says, "They were hiding in the shed out back." Then Jordan looks at mommy and says, "Why were you telling us to stay in the shed?"
If you've ever thought about getting your ears pierced, don't do what she did. This is the urban legend about a girl in Japan who tried to do it, then ended up with horrifying consequences. So this young girl really wanted to get her ears pierced. After some pleading with her parents, they finally agreed and gave her some money to go do it. But instead, the girl kept the money and decided to pierce them herself and let her friend help her. They heated up a large needle and went for it one day. It was painful, but in the end, she was happy she could finally wear earrings. However, this wouldn't last long. One day in school, she felt an intense pain in her left ear. Her earlobe was itchy, and by the end of the day, she had a headache. She went into the bathroom and saw her ear was very inflamed. Then she looked closer and saw a piece of white string sticking out of her new piercing. She picked and pulled at it, which only made the string longer. Now it was hanging out of her earlobe. The string seemed to be endless. The more she pulled, the longer it got. Finally fed up, she took a pair of scissors and cut the string. Suddenly, everything went black. There was a burning pain in her ears and her eyes. She began to scream. In the hospital, it was revealed that it wasn't a piece of string at all. She had pulled out a piece of her optic nerve and cut it. She would be blind for the rest of her life.
There's no way home, and I have no mercy. There's no way up, so I'm going down. Still I keep on living, so you pull me closer.
When my parents decided to get a divorce, I chose to stay with my dad. He was more financially stable, and he also promised to take care of me in the future and help me go through college as long as I graduated. When my grandmother from my mother's side passed away, I received a $30,000 inheritance, and recently my grandfather from my father's side passed away and left me with $50,000 as well. I was also working part-time jobs, and with all of that, I was able to save enough to comfortably put me through my 4 years of school. One day, my mom surprised my stepsister and bought her a brand new car. I was kind of shocked because it was way out of their budget because I knew they were struggling financially. When I looked at my bank account, I saw that a majority of my money was missing. I have my mom on all of my accounts because she wanted to monitor to make sure I don't spend too much money. I never would have thought she would have taken this and paid for my stepsister's car. Her reasoning was that my stepsister had a brighter future and had a bigger possibility of going to an Ivy League school and providing for us in the future. I, a student who gets mostly B's and C's, would just take over the family business, so I didn't really need it, and I could always work in the future. So this couple comes in together to buy an engagement ring, and they had a budget of about $20,000, which is a lot for an engagement ring. But the ring that she happened to pick out was about $35,000, which is a lot of money. And she was really adamant about picking it, and he was kind of reserved, like, it is a lot of money. But she's like, no, if you love me, you'll buy it, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, you know what? You're going to be my wife, the mother of my kids, whatever makes you happy. So after they finally decide, I pack it up for them. I'm like, here you go. Have a great marriage. Have a great life. Goodbye. About 3 weeks later, the fiance comes in, and I'm thinking she just wants to get the ring size or something. And she's like, can you guys take out the diamond and replace it with a cubic zirconium? Cubic zirconium is a very cheap substitute for a diamond. So I was like, yeah, we can do that, but just give us 2 or 3 days. So she leaves, and I call her fiance because I was like, oh, this is really suspicious. And he had no idea that she came into the shop or that she was coming in. So he calls me 2 days later, and he finds out that she was going to break up with him. She would have kept that diamond, and she would have given him the fake one. He would have returned it, and he would have gotten no money back. Talk about mess. Growing up as the youngest of 6 siblings, I knew at a really young age I would have to put myself through college. So by the time I was 19, I saved enough money to put me through college with the help of scholarships and have plenty left over. Well, my eldest sister got married a month ago, and my parents took out a second mortgage, $30,000 to help pay for her wedding. My dad lost his job right after, and I knew that they were struggling financially. So when my mom texted me a few weeks ago saying, call me as soon as you can, I knew what she was asking for. I didn't have a problem lending them a few thousand and help them pay their bills, and I'd also give them a few of my tutoring gigs to help make some extra cash. But what I didn't expect was my parents' demand that I gave them the near $40,000 I saved to put myself through college. When I disagreed, my mom said, you made that money under our roof. We were the ones who allowed you to work, so you have it because of us anyway. We bought you food and clothes for 18 years. I said that's a bare minimum when you sign up to become parents. And she hung up on me saying I wouldn't have the life I have today if it wasn't for them. I feel awful for refusing to help them out, but on the other hand, this was their fault. My fiancé and I have been together for 6 years and engaged for 3. We decided to wait until I finished with my PhD program for us to get married. I picked a beautiful wedding hall that I was on the waiting list for 3 years to get into. My older sister also got engaged and is planning her wedding 6 months after mine. At our family dinner, she recently revealed that she's pregnant. My sister recently revealed that she was expecting and was going to push her wedding date forward. And she put me on the spot at the table and said, I was really hoping we could take your venue. My husband and I were expecting our first daughter, and he suggested the name Tiffany, and I fell in love. When I asked what made him pick it, he said he saw it in a movie. I didn't think much of it, and so a couple weeks later, I called my sister-in-law to let her know we're going to name our daughter Tiffany. She was super surprised because she said she never wanted to name her child after her husband's high school girlfriend. I was really confused, but then she told me that they were together from sophomore year of high school to junior year of college. I knew he had a long-term relationship, but I never knew the girl's name. After hanging up, I confronted my husband, and he tried blowing it off at first, but eventually admitted that it was true. I told him I'm refusing to name my daughter after his ex-girlfriend, and he told me it's too late, I'm overreacting, and I can't change my mind since I'm only due in 5 more weeks. I basically cried to get as much information as I can when he finally told me that she had contacted him because she was getting married and was having second thoughts. My husband admitted that talking to her made him realize he never stopped having feelings for her, but he loved me too. The reason he suggested the name was because he knew he couldn't leave me to be with her, so he wanted something to honor her with. My boyfriend and I have been on and off for about 4 years. We've had our share of problems that stem mostly from his parents. He comes from a very upper-class family, and we met when I was just waitressing and he was in college for a high-paying job. 6 months ago, I gave birth to a very much unplanned but beautiful baby girl. Of course, his parents were pissed about this, and from the start of my pregnancy kept trying to say that they didn't think it was my boyfriend's baby. But when our daughter was born, they became amazing grandparents. They always offered to keep her tons when we needed breaks, and it really helped us out, and they would always buy things for her, returning her with new outfits, bottles, toys, and etc. So anyways, a few days ago, my boyfriend came home and he was in a pretty bad mood. He didn't want to tell me, but in the end, he decided it was best if I knew. His parents let it slip that they had taken our daughter to get a DNA test about a month after she was born. Of course, the results came back that my boyfriend was the father, but he was pissed that they would even do something like this without our consent. I was livid. I called his parents and immediately told them I was 21 when I found out I was pregnant with twin girls. My sister is 28 and has had 14 miscarriages. She's only had one successful pregnancy, which resulted in my 4-year-old niece. I'm not against having kids, but I definitely wanted to wait until I graduated with my degree and I was married to my significant other. From the start, my mom has been saying I should give my babies to my sister since she deserves them more than I do. And my sister completely agrees. I told them hell no, and my mom calls me a selfish bitch. Throughout my pregnancy, my sister has been begging me to give her at least one baby since I'm having 2. The last time I saw her, we were having lunch and she started babbling about keeping one of my babies, so I paid for my meal and left and haven't seen any of them since then. After I have my girls, I log on to Facebook to hundreds of threatening messages from my family and friends about how I stole my sister's babies and ruined her life. She posted a picture of her nursery that she had for my babies. There's so many posts about how generous I am for going through the pregnancy and giving my sister the babies. She told everyone I was giving her my babies, and she has my pictures of them in the NICU saying how she can't wait to bring them home. When I was 15 years old, I found out I was pregnant with twins. My boyfriend at the time was 21 and had nothing to do with me. When he knew I wasn't going to give them up for adoption or abortion, he walked away. My mom was disappointed, but she helped me throughout my entire pregnancy and my delivery. A few weeks before my due date, my boyfriend texted me saying he broke up with this girl and that he wanted to get together and he was going to try to become the best dad he can. After the twins were born, it was blissful for a few moments until my mother started becoming toxic. She would take them places without my knowledge, and I would wake up to an empty house not knowing where my kids were. She started overriding my decisions, and when I confronted her, she told me she knew better because she was an adult, and I was in no position to contradict her. After years of this happening, I finally had enough, and I managed to get enough money to afford a hotel for a couple of nights while I decided what to do. I asked my aunt to watch my kids for a few days so I can go out and find a job. And when I returned to the motel, they were gone. All of them. When I returned back to the hotel, my twins and my aunt are missing. No phone call, no message, no nothing. Coincidentally, my mom calls and says that my best friend told her that my twins were missing, even though I told no one. She was yelling at me on the phone saying she was so worried and it was obviously my fault because I was so young, and at that point I was really suspicious because I could hear my aunt in the background talking to my mom. So at that point I knew she took them to my mom's house. As soon as I hung up on the phone, I went to the police station to file a report. For a few days, the police went undercover to try to get evidence, and there was many pictures showing my mom taking my twins to their house. When we took her to court, she said that they ran away due to my abuse and she found them in the middle of the street, which was obviously a complete lie. My mom had paid my boyfriend to give her false information that I was hurting my kids. After a long and gruesome battle, I won the case, and my mom can't see them until they're 18. Even though my boyfriend at the time had a major part in it, he only has visitation limitations, which is once every 6 weeks. This happened 3 years ago when I was 18. I am now married to the love of my life and the best father in the world.